Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast with your hosts, Bill Algie, Dennis Talbot, and Alan Tate. We are three guys who have one thing in common, a love of rock and roll. Our goal is to talk about all things rock. We hope you find this show intriguing, funny, and occasionally highly opinionated. Enjoy! Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Ages of Rock podcast. I'm going solo this week, and I've got Martin Popoff here. And he's going to talk a little bit about this book, Van Halen at 50. How you doing, Martin?
Doing okay. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, we've had you on here before promoting other stuff, and I hope we'll have you on again promoting other stuff. So tell us a little bit about the Van Halen book, how you came about doing it, any neat information like that.
Yeah, so this book, this whole concept, I love it when this publisher, my editor over there, Dennis, we've had album by album series. We've had the illustrated history concept, which I think was theirs. And I believe this whole at concept was theirs as well. So I've done Bowie at 75. I've done Kiss at 50, AC/DC at 50, and this is Van Halen at 50. So the idea is it's nice to have these book projects or books on bands where they aren't particularly, massively interview intensive, because I get to just kind of like be purely a writer and sort of figure out, what I want to say here kind of thing. And the idea with these books and with this Van Halen at 50 is that I'm looking at 50 career milestones. They could be happy ones, sad ones, whatever, just milestones in general, right? And then I have to write kind of encapsulated, 2-page, 4-page spreads. They do a beautiful job of the pictures and laying the whole thing out. But yeah, it's all chronological. We picked as a starting point somewhere in 1974 as the start of Van Halen, hence the 50 years. So yeah, it's just a chronological. We've used, you include every studio album, every live album as one of those milestones. But then there could be deaths and breakups in the band and key concerts and all that kind of thing as we go along.
Right. One of the things that I like about these series is since the artist is not involved, the artist doesn't kind of get to cherry pick what they want in the books and what they won't let you put in the books. So I really like that. I like that there's a lot of good color pictures in here, lots of stories about albums and stuff like that. When you were putting this together, was there anything that you came across information wise about Van Halen that maybe you didn't know that was a neat little trivia nugget?
Yeah, lots of things along the way. I mean, my favorite stuff that I didn't know actually comes from, Sammy Hagar kind of pouring his heart out and in various interviews over the years, like just, how tough it was, that reunion tour with Eddie. Otherwise, this is a band that's pretty secretive, right? They didn't do a lot of interviews. They closed ranks a lot. Sammy is really the guy who is almost a spokesman for the band, really, because nobody else is. So they're a little bit like AC/DC in that they are a closed shop. They just kind of get down and do business. They got so huge. I can understand when this happens with these guys because they get so huge that everybody wants a piece of them. Nobody tells them no anymore. It's just all yes men kind of thing. So you never know when you're getting good advice, and there's just lots and lots of drama in the band. So because of all that drama, I think they kind of wanted to keep things at a minimum. It almost feels like so much happened with this band that we should be thankful that we got as many concerts and records that we did get out of them. But really, when you look at it being 50 years of that band, we got a little less than you would get out of most bands. The records started getting spread apart. The tours were spread apart as Eddie sort of succumbed, not only to the like substance abuse issues, but almost more like succumbing to the isolation of 5150 and being such a gearhead and being so much about sound and technology and just playing for himself and not even worrying about playing for the world kind of thing. So yeah, it's we all kind of wish we would have got more out of the band. And now I guess with Eddie gone, now we're all wishing that Wolfgang would come around in his idea of going into those tapes and doing something with the band, because that guy is such a Renaissance man, maestro, musical genius, that he's the guy that could pull off giving us more Van Halen albums if he wanted to go down that road.
You know, you brought up Wolfgang, and I have a lot of respect for Wolfgang because he is really in a tough position because his dad is Eddie Van Halen. You know, keyboard cowboy internet fans are just ruthless because on one hand, you've got people you only made it because who your dad is. And then you've got other people who complain because Wolfgang does his own thing and doesn't do Van Halen songs at his shows. And if he did a Van Halen song at his show, you know, somebody's going to jump in there and, hey, you know, you're just, you know, living off your dad now. You know, I've a lot of respect for him for being able to put up with that.
Yeah. Well, the other important thing is that he, you know, as he's framed it, and as people have become to recognize over the years, it was Wolfgang that kept Eddie alive as long as he was, like bringing the band back together, making that explosive, you know, incendiary final album. I mean, Wolfgang was the musical director of that thing. And, you know, come to think of it, you think of the entire Van Halen catalog, it's the album with the most interesting, entertaining bass playing because, you know, Wolfgang rose to the challenge of playing crazy, excellent dad-like bass on it, which, you know, for whatever reason, whether it was, you know, not required or not asked for or even turned down, we didn't get that from Michael. So we got that from Wolfgang. He was the guy putting all the riffs together, deciding this could be a song. So yeah, he's an integral part of a major final Van Halen album. But like I say, more beyond that, you know, he's a singer, he's a guitar player, he's a bass player, he's a drummer, he's a writer, he's a producer. He could do all those things. And, you know, I think it comes down to probably relations with Sammy and Dave. I don't know, you know, I've seen them squabble back and forth a little bit with Dave. I'm not sure if I've seen much evidence one way or another with Sammy, although we know Sammy now is out doing his own Van Halen, essentially, you know, with his Power Pack band with Joe Satriani and Jason and Mikey, right?
Right. I believe that tour started last week.
Yeah, pretty cool. But yeah, I think the fascinating thing is, you know, and Wolfgang, obviously, he's still heartbroken. He's still too close to it. But you know, the world would love to hear what is on those tapes, and with you know all the crazy studio techniques and everything, something could happen there. And the other absolutely important, crucial part of this whole story is that you know, forget about live. I mean, live doesn't matter, but you've got both iconic lead singers from this band who can still sing in a studio for sure and put something together. And yeah, you just put all those parts together, and I swear there's got to be easily 3 more Van Halen albums in the vaults if somebody wanted to you know, attack that beast.
That would be pretty cool. I wonder if maybe Alex doesn't have some say in that happening or not happening.
Oh yeah, he'd have a lot to say. And come to think of it, that's the other part of this thing that's a little unfortunate, because Alex just went through the selling off of everything he had. He had a big auction, so he's kind of like announced in his mind that, you know, I'm not playing drums anymore. Drums is really physical. He's an older guy. We can all understand that. But he is such an important part of that sound. I've always considered him, you know, a major part of the Brown sound thing. I mean, Eddie himself even said the Brown sound originates with Alex's snare, but I've always said it's Alex's snare, his cymbals, his bass drum sound, the way it's tweaked and a little bit different per album here and there, plus Eddie's sound that makes the Brown sound, the great Van Halen Brown sound. But yeah, and he's got his autobiography coming up. So he's done 2 things that sort of signaled that, hey, I'm officially retired. You know, even though he obviously he's only drummed ever for Van Halen, right? But yeah, those 2 things, selling everything off and doing the autobiography, kind of tells everybody that he's retired, even though, you know, he does have a good relationship with Wolfgang.
Yeah. You know, part of that Brown sound Van Halen thing, you consider Eddie and Alex have played music together their entire lives, you
Yeah.
know. So it doesn't surprise me that he doesn't want to play anymore because I think when Eddie passed, a piece of Alex passed as well, you
Yeah.
know, because you're not going to have two people that know each other so well that each, you know, Eddie plays this lick, Alex knows what to drum against it, and vice versa, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And I've always said a kind of a funny thing about this catalog is that I don't think they had the Brown sound from 1973 through to 1978, and I don't think they had the Brown sound on that first album. To me, that debut album is the most conservative, ambitious, soberly recorded, properly recorded, non-eccentrically recorded album that they ever did. They never made another record like that. So they, you know, for all the greatness of that album, it doesn't have the Van Halen, the explosive Who like quality and the Brown sound sort of situation, which really starts on Van Halen 2. I think you really hear all of that come together. And songs like DOA, because DOA is such a great example because I remember as kids hearing that. So I would have been 16 at the time when that came out. I remember hearing that and us love it. We were absolute expert headbangers by that point, and hearing that and going, this is a really killer, kick-ass, awesome Van Halen song. But when you think back and sort of tear it down, there's not much to it. It's not that much of a riff. There's not really a chorus to it. It's a really simple song, and the reason that it tricked us as kids and succeeds, just like in Everybody Wants Some or A Fool's, on Women and Children First, is that those songs are all about the performance and the chemistry between those players, and they aren't about having a really well-written, completely complicatedly written song. And that is actually something that plagued Van Halen throughout. I think they're almost best when you do get a really well-written song combined with the chemistry. But I think as time goes on, you do hear songs here and there where, as I call them, they're underwritten songs. Not much is put into the lyrics, not much is put into the riffing. I hate Best of Both Worlds and Good Enough. Songs like that where there's just nothing going on in these songs, right? So, but yeah, that debut I think is as professional as the band ever got, ironically.
I'm sure a lot of that has to do with them gotten to go on their tour and turning into headliners and having a little more freedom to mesh as a four-piece unit.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, this is a band that did pay their dues playing live a lot, but they did it all at home, right? Before 1978. But yeah, you're right. You think of that second album, you think of Women and Children First, a little less so Fair Warning, but it's still there as well. It's certainly there on Diver Down and 1984, where it does sound like they're playing more like a live band on those records.
So getting back to the book, you've got stories in there that you've written. There are lots of pictures in there. What was the process like getting the information for the stories and licensing the pictures? Did you have any issues with any of that?
Yeah. So the pictures, first of all, it's just a dream working with Dennis and this publisher and Steve and all those guys, because Dennis is such a great music guy in his own right, and we collaborate a little bit, but on the picture end of things, it's basically him doing all that. So he comes up with a very smartly, like, a picture that goes with my text, or two or three. We've got a lot of memorabilia as well. You don't have to go out and get licensed for taking pictures of memorabilia, but all the photographers, like Dennis, takes care of all that, deals with them and gets them paid and everything. So that's really cool. And then the text, it's a combination of my being a fan since the first album and inherently knowing what I know, and just the actual true nuggets of information. But one thing with these books that I like about them and I appreciate about what I do with them, is this idea that I don't pull any punches. Like I'm a complaining, cranky Van Halen fan, like notoriously most Van Halen fans are. But I also, I'm reviewing all these albums and giving my opinion. I'm giving my opinion of the album covers. There's a there's a spot in there where I rank all the album covers, and I basically really come down hard on them because I don't think this is a band with very good album covers. But I get to kind of like put my opinion into reviewing all the albums and all that as well. So as I sort of rationalized to myself, like, why do I get to do these books, or what? Why should anybody read these books? I think it's a combination of just having that fandom in your bones, and also putting in my own opinion and mixing that with all the factual stuff. So I think it gives it a little bit of a human feel by the time you get to the end of it. But having said that, also the other challenge with these books is you do have a very tight word count. So I have to really craft every sentence. My sentences tend to be long, complicated. There's a lot packed into everything because I have to make the whole thing count, right? Half the time is spent cutting it down from 1,500 words to 1,000 words, put it that way, quite often with these books. So yeah, I think you get a pretty good concentrated read in not a massive crazy word count.
This book is very, very good quality. It's a nice hardback book. Will you tell the listeners where they can find the book?
Yeah, it's all over the place, Amazon, etc. But I have them. I ship them out from my office here in Toronto. You can order it from martinpopoff.com. I sign all the ones that I send out as well. So I'll sign it to you or whoever you want. There's PayPal buttons there for international, US, and Canada. So yeah, it's just a quick PayPal. I sign them, send them out from the office. And all my books, I've done 130 books or so, and they're anything that's in print. I am also a mail order seller of those books, so I can combine it with other orders as well. But yeah, martinpopoff.com.
Right on. Well, I would like to thank you for coming on. I thank Steve for setting this up, Dennis for the photos, and everyone else that was involved in making of this book. And everyone visit agesofrock.com, check out our past episodes and social media. And until next time, y'all, peace out. Thanks for listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and most importantly, tell all your friends. Remember, you're never too old to rock. Until the next episode, peace out, folks.